Is it possible to dim just that light? Can you dim them a little? I mean, maybe we don't need to, but...
No.
Okay.
No.
That's fine.
No.
That's fine. Good morning. Can everybody see this? Okay, we good? It's nice to see, I knew we would do faces down here coming to visit, but it's good to meet you all. So if you don't know this, my name is Steve Gaudreau. I'm from the Manassas Church of Christ, and Renee and I traveled with Jerris about 10 years ago to do India mission work just to see what it was all about. We're both retired Marines, so we like to travel. We like to go into other countries, preferably democratic type countries, but this was a good trip for us, and we were there for 28 days. Weren't sure that we were going to continue the work. You know, Jerris, if you know Jerris and Juanita, 10 years ago, you know, retirement was always 1 year away. That was 10 years ago. And then he took, him and Juanita were having health problems. COVID hit, and we hadn't had an India visit in years, 3-4 years. So somebody had to go back, and they kept looking at me. You know, you know the people there, you've been there, do you want to go back? And after a while, it just seemed to make sense. And so I did. I did that last year, I did it again this year, and in February I go for 2 or 3 weeks. And these are the pictures that you're going to see to give you an idea of what that trip is like when we go. This is always my first slide because this is why we go. You know, the reason of going, it should be obvious to most Christians who know what the work that Paul did and the work that we still have to go and do. This is just a picture of all the places that we go, and that's not everything. And I get this knocked out in about 2 weeks' time, 2.5 weeks' time. I traveled some 4,000 miles, 3,000 in airplanes, 1,000 in cars, and every once in a while you throw a train in there. But we cover a lot of ground, and I don't know if this little bead, I guess you can see that, huh? So we land in this little place here. That's not a little place. There's a little place in India is 11 million people. So this got about 11 people. This is called Hyderabad, and this is kind of where we have an apartment complex of sorts where it's kind of the command center. We fly out to Hyderabad, we go to that place, and I'm done. And familiar faces, I'm sorry. And this is where we go to make our plans about what we're going to do next. We start there, we finish there. We have a board meeting there, and we press on. So, and from there, we come down to a place called Vijayawada, down to Pamani Padu, where we have a school of preaching. We'll go back to Hyderabad and fly all the way back up here close to the Nepal border in 2 cities called Bagdogra and Siliguri, where we support preachers up there. There's a school of preaching there as well. We come back through New Delhi. I think I got this. I don't think I got the geography right, but anyway, Delhi, and then back down to Bhopal, where is a church congregation that you all support. And we see the, you know, 10 years ago, our good friend and brother V.J. Doss was there, you know, father of 2 and great family, and then he passed away in 2022 of a sudden heart attack in his home. So we go back there now because his son has grown up and he's preaching. And we visit them and his mother, and then back to Hyderabad. This is always what it looks like every year we show up. Same airport, same location. The only difference is we're a little grayer and a little heavier every year that the picture's taken. This is the Tulsi home that I was talking about. This is a place where we meet. There's a conference room table, kitchen table in that back. Behind me is a bedroom where we stay, and just a good place for the brothers to come and to meet. The 2 brothers that I stay and hang out most with is David, and on my right is Mark. They go by P. David and P. Mark. The name convention over there is the first letter of the last name goes in front of the first name. So you call them, instead of Mark Palapathy, it's P. Mark and P. David. And we were just kind of the 3 hombres traveling around the country. If you haven't seen this, I'll apologize in advance. Everywhere you go in India, you get capes, you get flowers, you get big billboard signs put up, and that's just what they do. That's how they welcome you, that's how they honor you, so you just can't get around that. I call it the Billy Graham effect. You know, you go and everybody's just kind of been waiting for you for months or years, and they welcome you in that way, and that's just the way it is. And this is a welcoming that we got at a church. And again, it's common for them just to drape you with these things, these not scarves, the veils, The unfortunate thing for the men is you don't know what to do with them after they put them on your back. You're done with them. What I found out last time was, they said, brother, take those home. The women love those. I brought back 27 of those things, and I thought I was going to have to put them out and make an announcement to get them. I never made it out of the pews. The women just, they disappeared. So I'm going to start bringing more of those back. This is the first church we worshiped at that Sunday morning. I said we did a lot of work in just 18 days in country that I was there. I got there Sunday morning, like early. Got a couple hours sleep, woke up. We attend a worship service in Hyderabad or near Hyderabad, and this just kind of gives you an idea of what the building looks like and what the folks look like who show up. Women are always colorfully dressed like that. That very night we did a meeting out in somebody's home. This person lives here on the left in between two other houses. Family shows up, kids show up, and we have a nice little Bible study gospel meeting. And of course the kids are never camera shy. And I love spending time with the kids. They love seeing the tall white-haired guy from America, and I love sitting around playing with the kids. And then when we have time, we all go out and have a breakfast. We're doing this one before we get on the road and drive 6 hours down to Villajuana. This is 3 new places I went. I forgot to point them out on the map, or village areas. Beater, Moga, and a place called Baru. This is all farming. These are all villages. Spent a couple nights out there doing some gospel meetings. Buildings don't look as elaborate, but they're buildings that we built there one way or the other. And this is the family. Shadrach is the preacher there. His father, Marcus, is also a preacher. He preaches up in the other village town called Moga. So we visit their congregations. And did I mention the kids? Kids love to come up and just kind of get their face on camera. The peace sign is something I'm not sure, but I think I might have started because they never did that. And every time I see the kids, I always do a peace sign. And then all of a sudden they started doing this when we took the picture. And the reason why I don't think they knew that before is because I think this girl in the back is actually holding up 3 fingers, so she doesn't really know what everybody else is doing. We get it done. And that's this is Moga. This is Marcus's congregation. Very, very villagey. I mean, the only people, he's got a good-sized congregation, but they all come from just around that local area. You can see all their houses. They're makeshift houses with tin, makeshift houses with stone or block or whatever they can find. So most of all the places we go are very impoverished, but these people love coming to church and they love the fellowship and they love it when we come to visit. Here's some high tech out in this area where there's Moga and Beater and Baru. Big sugar cane development area out there. And it's 10 miles just to get to the first on a 2-lane road that cars don't fit on, so it's mostly motorcycles. But this is how they get their sugar cane back and forth from the processing plant. The other thing we do out there, and this is in Baru, and that's spelled correctly, but we say Baru, is we dedicate church buildings. We build a new church building, it gets established. Next time we go out there, we put some tape across the door. A lot of people come for the meeting, for the gospel meeting, and they come for the food too. But this is kind of what we do, and this is what the inside of the building looks like. We'll decorate it sometimes with balloons and some things hanging off the ceiling, but it's always very pretty. And again, when you go there, just the way the women are dressed in their saris, it's always just a very colorful thing to see. And this is the family there. Little Chenna is a young preacher, not married. His father works and helps out at the Tulsi home, and this is his family. And Chenna is just one of those young preachers that does such a great job and has a long path to go as a preacher. Here's a little culture. Here's one of my favorite pictures. That's a building. That building, of course, looks like a fish. So I had to take a picture of it. You know what they do in that building? It's a fishery, that's right. Love that fish. So now we travel all the way down to Villajuana. This is a big kind of a Hindu place, and you'll see a statue there after a while, but we have brethren there. This is a church that we just built for Brother P. John, is his name, and he's the brother of Mark and David. They both a big preaching family. But we just dedicated that last year. And we had to build that for them because the places that P. John was worshiping at or bringing his congregation or living at were owned by Hindus who didn't like the fact that they were using their property for his Christian activities. So routinely he'd go from place to place to place and they wouldn't renew his lease. and it was literally being chased around. And so we built him a nice church building, and he lives, there's a place in the back where he lives, and his family lives there. So this is us just kind of being greeted as we go in. This is what it looks like from the front. Again, always packed, always very colorful, giving a sermon there. And this is going out later that night to this brother who was there, just invited us to his home for a meal. I never turned those down, so we went out and visited and had some fellowship with his family. And they do the same thing at home. They put those shawls on your back, and it's a nice gesture of welcoming. Then sometimes we go out at night, and we find places, if it's not a congregation, we find a person's home, like this one. As you can see, there's not much there. We wouldn't have fit inside the house, so we lay a tarp down outside the house, and we have a little gospel meeting there. This man works for the Brick and Stone Company. He just hard work every day and comes back home. But we have these kind of meetings at night, and it's interesting because the neighbors will always kind of see the lights. We usually have a little stereo system going, and they'll hear us, and they'll kind of poke their heads out just to kind of see what's going on. And it's good because I always have an interpreter. So I know that they can hear what we're saying, what we're talking about. This is my version of an Indian Uber. This is how they get back and forth from the farmlands and the fields. And they'll pack those things as if they're trying to set a record for how many people they can get in there. One that I didn't take a picture of, these guys are grabbing the top. There are people who are sitting on the top. And that's about as crazy as the motorcycles, which I don't have a picture for, where you'll see 4 people on a motorcycle. The father's driving the motorcycle, the baby's in front of him, the next oldest is behind him, and the mother's at the end. These are just little motorcycles. I call it the India minivan, and they go back and forth like that. But anyway, here's a traffic jam. This is the road that we go to out there. 2 lane for 10 miles just to find where these villages are, but you see this a lot, and you just have to wait till they're clear, or you can get around them. When you're in the city, cows will be moving about, and as you know, they are sacred over there. When a cow gets in the middle of the road, guess what you do? You stop. I call it the Indian red light. You sit there until that cow goes away, and then you can keep on going. This is heading south from Vijayawada down towards Pamadipadu. This is another congregation that we built the church building there years ago. It's called Thimapuram, and our brother Babu Rao lives there. Now, we didn't stop there in the daytime this time, but we went back at night to have a gospel meeting there. They made a big to-do. They put a stage up, they had fireworks, they had a lot of food, they had everything. And there was almost 200 people at this get-together that night. This is a picture taken from the back, and there's still a third of these people behind him because he's on a stand that's got the speakers. But we had a good gospel message there and stuck around for a little bit of food afterwards. And sometimes nighttime is the only time these people can get out. They work all day, and if you're not there on a Sunday morning, the only way you can go see them and talk to them or give them a lesson is at nighttime. And so we go. This is at David's congregation. This is down in a place called Mangalagiri, and this is his congregation. And again, the pictures, and pictures can be old. You know, I think Jerris and Juanita, that picture's about 20 years old. He's been doing this for 44 years. But they'll find the pictures on the internet, so I make sure I get pictures out to them first. And I say, use this one, in case they find one on there that is a beach picture or something. I don't know. And kind of what the congregation looks like. His building is a little more confined. It's in another building, so he rents that. But this is his family, and a great little family. This brother here is a police officer, and he looks like a police officer. And this is David and his family. This little girl here, last year I put up a picture, and she was, after the lesson we had, she was real shy. And she finally came over to me as I kneeled down, and she stood in a pretty dress like this, red dress. And she just stood there next to me, like she didn't want to be there. And they took the pictures, and the father said, okay, we're done. Well, as soon as he said we're done, she turned her head, kissed me on the cheek, and walked off. That's her. And yeah, she did it again. A little further away, but in the same area, Katavakaduru. Say that 10 times real fast. I usually call them by short names like Katavak. But this is another, this is a cousin. No, this is a cousin of P. David and P. Mark, and this is a church that we also dedicated last year. So it's a new building as well. And the kids, again, more kids. They love to come up and hug you. And the mothers love to have you hold their babies. It looks more like I'm running for office than it does preaching a lesson or something like that. But this mother, right, this is the mother right here. And see this pulpit here? She literally almost flung that baby over that pulpit to put in my hands, just so as that they can get that little baby in the picture. So I didn't drop him. You can see he's giving me the stiff arm. So it took a while to get to know each other, but again, the kids are not shy. And this is the back area where we have a little bit of food and fellowship after, as we normally do after a meeting. Just a good routine. Pamity Padu is the place we go to that has, it's a compound. It's the furthest south that we go to. February, temperatures 90, 92, really not bad considering how hot things can get in India. So that time of year is why I like to go. It's a little cooler, especially if I'm going north. Less mosquitoes, less rain, and it's just a good time to travel. But that's where the School of Preaching is. As you can see, the school classrooms are up on top. The bottom is the church building that you'll see the inside of here shortly, and then his house is on the other side of the compound where we all stay. This is inside of the classroom where every year I go out, I'll teach 3 to 4 one-hour lessons on something that they haven't heard or they're not familiar with. Last year I taught on Daniel because I taught Daniel. This year I taught Revelation, which is tough to do in a 3 or 4 hour period, but it's enough to get the overarching concepts of the book and what to look for when they're studying. So we just kind of do that, and they'll tell me, next year you should do this, next year you should try this. And so I come as prepared as I can be, and they all graduate, you'll see that. This is his family, and it's always a blessing to be there in their home. Every morning I got Indian coffee waiting for me, or Indian tea, and a little bit of breakfast before we start the day. Just a great experience. We go back to the church building and they have a graduation. So these brothers already graduated. They kind of wait 2 months for us to come out to be a part of that graduation and preside or anything that we can do to help. This brother here sadly lost his son recently due to brain cancer. Just a good brother and family you might keep in prayer. That was pretty tough on him. That happened after I left. And there's also with our little caps and gowns and as these preachers. When these preachers are done, when they graduate, as they come down, we announce their name. We give them several things, actually. We give them a brand new Bible, a nice Bible in Telugu. They get the little stick with with the pouch at the end for getting money for the contribution. We give them a tray to put fruit of the vine in, grape juice, and we give them some money to help start their things. And we give them one other thing that you'll see. But this is just finishing up in the graduation. This is what the congregation looks like from the front. Generally, the men won't wear this, although they expect me to. They'll usually just wear white shirts and white pants. That's their formal dress for coming to a worship service. And the ladies, of course, also and always very colorful. This is outside. We have women that go to this school as well. It's obviously not a school of preaching for them, but it is just a formal Bible school for them. And they graduate as well with the brothers that are going off to preach. We give the brothers bicycles, because sometimes that's the only way to get to work or get around that they have. And we give the ladies sewing machines. They use those, they know how to use them, and they make money sewing for other people. So we help them out in that way. And it's just good to be goofy every once in a while when you're over there and we're having fun. Baptisms along the way. This gentleman was actually, and his wife, both baptized. They're local denominational preachers. Not a denomination name that you would recognize, but someone that just had different views and beliefs and practices as far as a Christian church goes. P. Mark invites them to the school for the teaching, and they come. And him and his wife were baptized that day. Again, we go back out now to the villages. Last year I was out there, everybody came to me. This year I said I want to go see them. And of course they were willing to do that. You'd wait till 7 o'clock at night, you get in the car and you just start traveling around these dark areas for such a long period of time that you'd never think that you were in a country with 1.3 billion people in it. But farmland is farmland, and most everybody else is packed into cities. But this is these are all church buildings that we're into, and so you can see what they look like. They decorate them up just a little bit to make them look nice. This is another place that we went. another 15, 20 minutes away, and yet another place that we went. So out in the villages, they look a little more like this. They're smaller. They like to decorate them. They even gave me a Merry Christmas here while I visited. So I'm not sure if that was for me or they just never took it down. I don't know, but it was nice to see. And then we go back out the next night for a meeting at somebody's home. And we do a gospel meeting there. Same thing. A lot of the neighbors will hear you. This is a government area where people live, and because this brother works for the government. And then we go back upstairs to his house again for a little fellowship and some snacks, and some prayer, and it's just a good time, good experience. Gaudreau. This is now way back up north. Short story is my name since I was a kid is Tiger. It's all my family knows me by is Tiger. My family called me Steve. I'd look at him like, you know, why are you calling me that? So that's just something I'm used to in the family. Well, I tell this to the brothers as we're driving up there, and they say, "Brother, so really your name is Tiger?" And I said, "Yes." He says, "Do you not know the name and the meaning of this town?" And I said, "Well, I guess not." He says, "Gaudreau means tiger is here. Tigers are here." And I said, "Really?" I said, "They have t-shirts?" Like, yeah. He says, "No." I said, "Well, Gaudreau is here." So I had fun with that, because then every time I went into a room, I'd say, "Gaudreau." Anyway, Gaudreau and Siliguri, two towns that are close together, two congregations there that we support in one way or another, and usually when I go up there, I try to plan it to be on a Lord's Day, and we do 2 worship services that morning, one in each location. I put this picture up because if you travel in India, and you go to an airport for internal flights, you go to a gate, you'll see a plane. But that's not your plane. No matter where you go, you'll see a plane, but that's not your plane. What is at that gate is a bus that will take you to where your plane is. I'm not sure why that happens. I think it's just they park wherever they can get a parking space, and it's seldom at the gate that you want to be at. So we kind of get used to that. You know, we get there and we say, "Oh, our plane's here." No, it's not. But our bus is, so I know we're going to get to the plane. This is Brother Joseph Kati, and he's a great preacher. He speaks 3 or 4 different languages. When we move north, the language changes from Telugu to Hindi. So he's speaking Hindi, and he translates in Hindi, and he just does a great job up there with his school of preaching, and every time I come up, we have an event, you know, a gospel meeting, 2 or 3 days. People will come from all over, Nepal and some other places, just to be there for a couple of days. He's translating for me, and we can see that every once in a while we don't quite get the spelling right. In this case, he was the first one to point out that it was we're not walking in his footsteps, but we're walking in his footsteps. And I said, "It's okay. They probably charge by the letter, so you saved a little bit of money." But we all understood. And this is what the congregation looks like from the front, just kind of give you an idea of what the different buildings look like. They're painted differently, they're decorated differently. And all the kids sit up front, which is a nice idea sometimes if you're done quickly. If you stick kids up there too long without any adult supervision, they get a little rowdy, and you find you know, the mothers kind of sneaking up behind them to get their attention. Back of the hand attention kind of thing, and if the fathers get aggravated, you'll see them just kind of walk up and grab one of them by the arm and pull them out of that group, and you just see arms and legs flailing as the children go flying back. But that's just kind of the way they do it there. And this is us taking a break. This is up towards, you've heard of the hills of Darjeeling, where all the tea is. There's a lot of tea up there. We don't go all the way to Darjeeling, but we take about an hour's trip up to the mountains. There's a little place there that serves coffee and tea, and it's cool up there. It's like 50 degrees, and so it's comfortable. Joseph Kati, when he's not preaching, likes to sport a few American ideals like the leather jacket, the boots, and that sort of thing. Such a good man. This is the congregation in Siliguri that we drove over to that morning. They're only about 20 or 30 minutes apart, so we get there first, preach a lesson there, go home, preach a lesson, do the Lord's Supper, back to Gaudreau. And this is what his congregation looks like as well. This building also has only been there for about 2 or 3 years. When Renee and I went up 10 years ago, it was in a basement of another building, and the ceiling was 6 foot tall. Yeah. And I'm 6'2", so we all kind of walked around, hunched over to find a place to sit. He's got this nice building and a good congregation there. Here's where we're really letting our hair down. We found a Starbucks up there, so we like to pop in there every year and get some coffee. This is Suba. This is Joseph Cotty's wife. A very talented sewer. She makes scarves. She makes all the gifts that she gives us every year are these handmade things that she either crochets or sews. Very talented. And then, of course, the other two brothers, P. Mark and P. David, traveling together. This is what they do when they're done preaching and eating. I call it righteous rest. We were driving up to that mountain area that we saw, and I said something sitting up front. And nobody answered me, and they usually do. And I said, guys, did you see that? That police officer crossing out? I don't hear anything else. I'm almost too embarrassed to look behind me. So I take my phone and I turn it on reverse, and I just kind of held it up like this to see what was going on, and just out sawing logs, snoring. So I took the picture. They told me not to do this, but I did it anyway. I just thought it was a nice picture. Now we go down to Bhopal, which is where B.J. Doss's family is, Boaz, and his mother and his sister. His sister's already a doctor, or getting towards her degree, Pallavi. Very smart girl. You'll see a picture of her. You can see where Bhopal is in relation to... we actually had to go to Delhi for an overnight and then fly down for the plane connection. Otherwise, everything else was pretty much nonstop. Bhopal, if you're not familiar, and you may be familiar, this was the place of that terrible chemical accident they had, I think, back in the 80s, and I forget the name of the chemical company. But anyway, they had a leak, a valve leak. There's a movie on it, a movie documentary on Netflix about it. But it got out, and it killed thousands of people, and was just a terrible incident that happened there years ago. This is Boaz, VJ's son. VJ was a little boy when that happened, and he remembers his mother taking him into the bedroom and putting a blanket over him and telling him just to stay there until I tell you you can move. But it's a terrible thing. But this is the building they live in. And again, this building is, you build up always instead of out if you can, because it's cheaper. But they live downstairs on the first floor. This is the worship service area. That door back there is an apartment room where I stay, or whoever's visiting will stay if they're visiting there. And then on top of that is yet another school of preaching. We built that and completed that since we were there back in 2013. The problem was BJ was the director, and he passed away, and he didn't have anybody to kind of fill in for him. Probably should have. We're trying to make sure we don't make that mistake again, but he didn't. Boaz is going through, of all things, dental school, kind of a preliminary dental school. But he wants to do that just to get his education. He's got one more year to do it. He preaches here. He goes to school, because it's a bus drive basically for him. Next year he'll be done. When he's done, we're going to send him back to Pamity Padu for that school of preaching. That's a 3-month program. And when he completes that, we're going to send him to another more formal preaching school, and then we're going to bring him back here to be a director of the school of preaching again, so we can start getting people moved through there. But good guy, smart guy. It's Hindu here as well, language. This is a shot of us. He's translating for me in Hindu. And the result of this meeting that we had, flew in one day, 2 days. One day we had a meeting. These 3 young people were baptized that day. And so that was kind of a pleasure to see. We go out later. This is Boaz to my right, and his sister Pallavi. She's continuing. She's actually working now, and she wants to continue her degree, but she's a doctor, and she helps patients, and she wants to go on to get more advanced degrees so that she can do more, but basically stay there and take care of her mom. It's just a pretty waterfall. It was right behind us. Of course, that's on government property, and a pretty sunset that I'm sure looked better standing there than it does in this picture. But this is just us getting out. We go out in the evening for a little meal and fellowship. This is BJ's widowed wife, Annapurna is her name. And then Pallavi next to her, and then Boaz next to her. P. Mark, P. David to my left. So that was a nice picture. They wanted me to sit here because they saw a picture of a tiger on top, and they just said, brother, you have to sit here. Okay. The swords and the tiger. Every once in a while you get a random animal to come up to the window while you're stuck in traffic, and they'll just sit there and look at you for a little bit, and and if they're not in the way, they'll move away. The horns are constantly going, so sometimes the horns don't even register with some of the animals that are in front of you, but they just like to come up and say hi every once in a while. Anyway, back to Hyderabad, where we started. This is where we have, in this case, we had yet another graduation. There's a school of preaching down south of Hyderabad called Kurnool, and they have a school of preaching there. These guys, I didn't have the time to get down there and travel to do the graduation, so we brought them up to us. And we had a little ceremony, and again, there's their formal dress is white. And we give them a graduation ceremony. We give them the same gifts that we give the ones down in Pabni Padu, and we send them off. They went back on a bus that day to travel back to Kurnool. It's about a 4-hour bus drive. Last thing we do is we get this group of preachers together who are all members of the board, the council. We talk about what we did that year. We talk about what we're going to want to do next year. We talk about the money. We get a report on the funding. We just conduct business there to make sure that we have an account to anybody that wants to see it or know about it of what's being done over there, what we're doing with the money, et cetera, et cetera. And they'll come up with other ideas. I travel around and say, well, this building needs maintenance, and we need to do this in this area. We need to buy this land. And so I'll make all those notes, and I'll present those, and they'll do the same thing based on their experience, not only the time we were there, but when we're not there. And we bring those back, and we try to prioritize those, and accomplish what we can with the budget that we have. Going good on time? Okay. A little fast-paced, but the trip was fast-paced. I mean, it was always, you were either, I used to tell people when I was aboard ship, you were either eating, sleeping, or flying if you were a pilot. That's all, it seems like that's all you were doing. You're eating, or you're sleeping, or you're traveling, or speaking. I was there 18 days. I had 28 speaking engagements. The good side of that is you go from I took like 12 lessons or sermons over with me. Within the first couple of days, you know that they only want to hear 3 of those 12. And you get to say them over and over and over again because they're new to the people that you're going to. Preachers know that. And it makes it a little easier because after a while, you're not even using your notes. This is the last day I was there. We had another worship service that morning in another location. Brother Y. John Wilson, at his congregation. We expanded his building a little bit to give them more room to get in there and worship. This is kind of what that looks like. When we were done with the worship service, the girl wanted to be baptized. We baptized her right there before we went up to do the Bible study. Then we went upstairs to do a Bible study. You can see this is all kind of grass and woods. We want to build a second floor on that building, but we're waiting for a permit. Hyderabad, I said, 11 million people in there, something like that. Trying to get permission to do some of these things is sometimes difficult to do. So we're waiting for that. But in the meantime, they do this as long as they're not getting any of those monsoon rains, because this doesn't hold the water. It leaks. They got to roll up the carpet and pretty much get out of there. But they take advantage of it when it's dry. We had a good lesson there. And of course with the kids. Kids are always intrigued. I don't know if they fully understand what I'm saying, if they hear the translations. But they wanted me to pray for them. And I thought I'd get to the point, but I wouldn't get emotional. But this little guy asked P. Mark if he could pray for me. Enough said. Anyway, we finished that. We go back downstairs for more food and fellowship. And 8 hours after this get-together, I'm on a plane coming home. It's just that fast. That's how much was involved that day. We worked right up to the last day. We started the first day with an evening meeting. We finished the last day with worship service studies, and it just was a great trip. And the busier you are over there, the better the trip is for a lot of different reasons. This is our competition. This is a Hindu god called Hanuman. They call him the monkey god because his jaw is in and his nose is out and he looks like a monkey. If you go to the story of this, why his jaw is that way, you have to read things like, he saw the sun and he wanted to play with the sun. He thought it was a ball. When he reached for the sun, his father, Ram, I think, got mad that he was going after the sun. And so he hit him with a lightning bolt that dislocated his jaw and made him look like this. This is what people believe. These are the gods and the stories that these people follow, like any other, like we read in the Old Testament. You know, they go after this. I took this picture, this is interesting, because these are relatively the same dimensions as Nebuchadnezzar's statue that he built in Daniel, right? 9 feet wide, 60 feet tall. That's about the dimensions of this statue. The religious demographics over there is 80% Hindu in that country, 14% Muslim, 2.3% Christian, and that's, you know, that's a demographic count of Christians. That's all denominations over there. That's everybody calls themselves Christians. 2.3% of 1.4 billion people. And what's that tell you? A lot of people need to hear the gospel, and that'll never stop, and they'll never stop coming. It's tough sometimes to find a place. You know, there's places in the South like Pamini Padu. If there's a lesson or a sermon going, I didn't show you, but the top of the buildings has speakers, like 6 pointing in all different directions, and you can hear the sermon being preached 3 to 5 miles away. And they want that to happen. They don't care if that happens. In fact, it really does kind of get people to come see what's going on. You can't do that up in Bagdagra and Siliguri. If you do, people will come knocking on your door. They won't attack you or anything like that, but they'll come see you and let you know that you're a little too loud or you have a little too many people in that particular area. So you do have to be careful where you go. I have to depend on the brothers that I travel around with because they know. I say, can we do this? No, brother, that's not a good idea. And I pay attention to that. This gives you an idea of the basics behind the funding. When we get money, this is what we do with it. We pay preachers' salaries, which is something along the lines of anywhere from $200 to $500 every quarter. It's not a lot of money. It's a lot of rupees, which they can take a lot further than we can with dollars. But it's a lot of money to them, relatively speaking. We pay the preachers. We pay for construction when we want to build a new building, church building, school of preaching. The maintenance on it is required after a period of time, and if we have the money, we continue to do that. There's always benevolence, and benevolence is always a challenge because sometimes things over there get expensive medically. They have country or what we would call state hospitals, but they like to go to the ones where there's paid, where you have to pay, because the idea is there's better medicine there. Even though these doctors circle back to the same hotels where they don't have to pay anything. So sometimes they'll send us very large bills, and we just don't know exactly what to do with it at the time because we can't pay the whole thing. It gets just to be a little too cost expensive. You have to kind of, you want to be benevolent, but you don't want to be a healthcare system. You know, you have to balance that and make sure that the people who are contributing, you can have some accountability for what you're doing. But we do try to help in different ways. It costs to bury people, it costs hospitals. Brother Kati that I just showed you, he lost his brother to COVID, and then I came back this year, and when I left, he lost his father to, first he lost his arm because he had a blood infection. He was a diabetic. Lost part of his arm, and then it killed him, I guess, a week later. And those they're expensive things, and the brothers will always come back to us and say, this happened, and here's the bill. And we have to try to figure out how to do that. But we do provide some benevolence. Traveling is just a must. This doesn't cost us anything, me traveling here, but I got to go to Texas and North Carolina and Mississippi and places where they contribute, and I got to get to India and back. That costs money. And then when we can, we buy songbooks and Bibles and bicycles and sewing machines and that sort of thing with the money. It's a big budget, it seems, by numbers, but it's a budget that's been supported and maintained for over 45 years. I always like to quote 3 John chapter 8 when it's talking about people who are traveling to spread the word. He says we ought to support such people to prove that we are fellow workers in the work. And I always tell people, I said, you know, missionaries, that's what we do. We go out and we ask for money. But when you do, you become part of the workers in the truth. The Bible tells us that. And of course, we do all that. Every penny of that, directly or indirectly, goes to this. This is the final answer. I was there 18 days. We baptized 42 people in 18 days. You don't see that a lot in America. Cultures are different, situations are different, but they come and they get baptized. So we do that in pools, we do that in lakes, we do that in rivers, we do that wherever there's water. A lot of times in normal baptism, someone will come up and want to be baptized. There's not a baptismal there. So they won't wait around for me, or I won't wait around for them, but when we're done, they will take them out later in the evening, towards the evening, and they'll find a river or a lake, whatever's convenient for them to do the baptisms. Any questions? That was fast, that was furious. I got 5 minutes left. I'll get back to you. Any questions about the travel, about the people, about where the money goes, what we do?
We appreciate your efforts.
You know, I started this back up again before I went last year. So I remember Jerris, we went out to lunch and we were talking about the work, and Jerris says, brother, he says, I really want to, you know, thank you for doing this. And I kind of smiled back at Jerris. I said, you know, Jerris, at this point, it's one of those, I don't feel like I had any choice in the matter. You know, it was something I did 10 years ago. I knew the people, I knew the work. Even though 10 years later, when I'm convinced I'll never see India again, I'm convinced I'll never have anything to do with this work again. COVID hits, illness, you know, kind of strikes Jerris and Juanita, and all of a sudden nobody's able to go. I didn't think of it much at first, but after a while, you know, people start talking to you, asking questions, and next thing you know, you're on a plane. So I think it was just one of those meant to be things. That's my story, and I'm sticking with it. So I enjoy going. And next year, Renee has not been able to go with me because of taking care of her mom and her work with the State Department, but I think, Lord willing, we'll be back on a plane together next year. The women miss the women, the American Women Company. Juanita has just spoiled them all rotten. And every time I go, I get a quick hello, and then it's, where's Sister Renee? So maybe next year we can make that happen. Okay, well, I appreciate your attention. If you have any questions after the fact, I'll be around. Thank you. Yes, sir. Gaudreau. No, my father was from France. Well, he was from New England. His father was from Canada. And his father's father. I think some of the letters Thank you. It's always, you know, it's easy to talk about. It's talking about, you know, it's almost like a vacation. It's like, well, you've already done good. It's actually a good question. Most of them, the only reason I'm coming here is because I think they know they so I don't know how many people. Some of the people that come to are already I think most of them get out there and do their thing. Morning, sir, how you doing? See some others at the Zoom. But I think they get all their stuff.